All right, in this lecture, we're going to be diving into functions, and functions are so great in Kotlin. I think they're just a dream to work with. Makes it very straightforward about what's going on. So to create a function in Kotlin, all you have to do is type fun space, give your function a name. Like I'll make one that just says, that's called hello. And the idea is this is going to print out hello world. So you have to do some parentheses here. Eventually this is where some parameters are going to go in, but right now we'll just do a function with no parameters. This function does not return anything, and then anything that's inside the curly brackets gets run when this function is called. So for example, inside of here, I'm going to say print line, and I'm going to print out hello world. And now I can call this function just like this. Hello, I could call it multiple times if I'd like to, and each time that I call it, it's going to run this code. So we should see hello world printed out 3 times. Look at that. That's exactly what we get. Now let's say we wanted our function to return some information. Well, what we do is we put a colon after the parentheses where the parameters are going to go, and then we say what type is going to be returned. So in this case, if I wanted to return a string, I can do that. And so rather than saying print line hello world, I am now going to simply return hello world, is just return space. That's how you return something. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to print line whatever hello world, or excuse me, hello function gives back. It should be kicking back a string. So let's go ahead and run this. And look at that. It prints out hello world. That worked great. Now, if you want to pass parameters into a function, you can do that by specifying a name for your parameter. So I might say something like, if I want to say hello to someone, so I'll say name. This is going to be of type string, if I can spell string correctly. And now I can say something like hello, and then I'm going to do some string interpolation here and pass in name. So that then means here inside of this function, if I'm going to spit back some information, or if I have a function that requires a parameter that I need to put something here, so maybe I'll put like Nick right there. So now when I run this code, it should say hello Nick, and boom, look at that, it does. Now one cool thing that you can do is you can set sort of default parameters, so if someone doesn't provide a value, you can still move forward. So I can say, you know, name colon is going to be a string, and I could set this equal to maybe like Rick by default, so that someone could still call oh, IntelliJ is freaking out on me here, but I can still call this function without passing a parameter now. And what it will do by default is just say, hey, if no one gave me a parameter, I'll just use Rick as the default for this. And if you want to accept multiple parameters, you can do that. You just say comma, and then, you know, let's say if you wanted to take another parameter like punctuation, if that's how you spell it, right? So if someone wants to say hello with like an exclamation point or something like that, you know, then we'll say, all right, then we're going to provide $ punctuation. So we would want to specify here that we are going to first give a name like Nick, and then we're also going to give, let's do a question mark just to be fun here. So we'll say hello Nick. That's what this function should give us, and look at that, hello Nick. Now something cool with functions that you can do in Kotlin is this sort of shorthand way of making a function. So let's say I have kind of a, you know, a dumb function that adds 2 numbers. So I'm going to say fun add numbers, and it takes 2 parameters. So it takes like num1, which is an int, and it takes num2, right, which is an int. And I say, you know what, this thing at the end of the day should be returning an int value. And I'll do my curly brackets here, and then I'll say, you know, return whatever num1 plus num2 is, just like this. Like, that's a valid function, right? Well, you can also do this same function, but in kind of a shorthand way. And the shorthand way to do this is you just say fun add numbers. So I'm going to do the same name as this one. In fact, I'm just going to copy everything up to the parentheses here. So I'm just going to copy this. So we have the exact same function, and what we're going to do this time is instead we're just going to say this is equal to, and then we're just going to say num1 plus num2. And so let me go ahead and comment this out. Also, that's a fun little hotkey. If you select all the text and then hit Command and then the /, that's going to allow you to comment out stuff quickly. But basically, this is the quick-hand way of saying I'm going to return whatever num1 plus num2 is. So Kotlin is smart enough, one, to determine, okay, num1 plus num2, these are the name of the parameters that were just given, and they're both int, so they probably want to return an int, and so it does that, returns it, and it doesn't make us specify that this thing should kick back an int. I mean, we could, if we wanted to, say that this is going to return an int, but it's a little bit overkill here, because in this case, Kotlin knows that this is a totally fine way to do this. So my challenge for you, quite simple: make a function that takes a dog's name and age and prints a sentence about it. Man, my spelling is horrible. Sentence. Oh, who cares? Okay, so go ahead, hit pause on the video, and do this now. Man, it's embarrassing how bad I am at spelling here. Basically, all you had to do was make some function that prints out some information about a dog. So I might call this one like dog info. It's going to take, in my case, name as a string, and it's going to take age as an int, and it's not going to return anything because we're printing here. And I'm going to have it do a print line where it says something like Fido is 7 years old. And instead of saying Fido, that's where I'm going to say $name. Instead of doing 7, that's where I'll say $age. Okay, that's it. So we are flying through. In the next one, we're going to kind of step things up a bit by talking about classes, and then we're going to dive into nullables. So some good information coming here in the next one.